Going on, guys? Doing a little update from the PCT. We are outside of Burney, California, which is a small town in Northern California. I think the last video I did, we were getting ready to go into South Lake Tahoe, if I am recalling correctly. So we went into South Lake Tahoe. We actually had just beat a pretty gnarly storm into there, and lo and behold, we got there. We hid in a Taco Bell for like 5 hours until our room was ready. They wouldn't let us go in until like 3 o'clock, so we had to wait, which was no big deal. But it stormed and apparently had like 100-mile gusts out on the ridges. So people we were hiking with and things, unfortunately, got stuck out in that, and up to 100-mile. I think it was 60-mile sustained, 100-mile gusts. It was pretty wild. Some lady finally picked us up. It had already started raining on us at the road. I think over 50 cars went by us. Never been passed by that many cars out here. That was kind of abnormal. So we went into South Lake Tahoe. That was a cool little town. Did our packages. Had a beach, so that was nice. Got to chill on the beach for a little bit and relax. The water is very cold because the whole lake's surrounded by very tall mountains. It's like the foot of the Sierra, so a lot of the water is fed by snowmelt, so it's just too cold to do anything, to do any type of recreation. Some lady at the hotel told a guy we were hiking with that the swimming season is from August to August. So from August 1st to the end of August is your chance to swim in South Lake Tahoe. So that was nice. We left there. There's a lot of tourists. Had to walk a few miles to get to the lake because we didn't want to pay the tourist prices. It transitions into, a tourist town. That's what it is. It was okay. Went from there. The next stop would have been Sierra City, which is an old gold mine town. It still kind of has those vibes. It's a very small town in the middle of a very large valley. You kind of just go down in there. There's not much there. There used to be, I think, 27 saloons and 2 breweries there. That's all people did was mine gold and drink, apparently. And who knows what else they did. But it's just a town in the middle of nowhere. They built a town on top of the mountain, and then an avalanche actually took out the entire town, and they rebuilt it down in the valley. It's still there. It used to be kind of a boom town. They found a very large gold nugget there, I think in the 1860s. Anyway, they found a gold nugget there. There was a rail station. They had a lot of stamp mills there, and it's kind of turned into just a little town. It's like on its last leg, if you want my honest opinion. I hope that they get some more tourism and stuff. COVID really killed a lot of these little towns. We also stopped in Belden, kind of the same thing. They had kind of a little spot that was apparently real popular with like bikers and travelers. When we went in there, it was absolutely dead. There was no one even in the store because they can't get help after COVID. It was just kind of sad to see, the effect that it's had on these real small businesses. They already were struggling, but Belton was good. The climb out of there was absolutely brutal, mainly because just the heat. The sun exposure and the heat in Northern California has been rough. There's been the burned areas, so you're even more exposed. The sun's already harsh, and then you combine that with the fact that the fires are getting worse and worse out here. It was explained to me that they got so good at putting out fires that the undergrowth and everything gets too out of control, too dry. So when they do get fires that they can't stop and they're out of control, they're much, much worse than they used to be. So it just kind of burns everything. And from Belden, we went into Chester. Chester was great. Stuck my thumb out, ran down the steps and stuck my thumb out as a car drove by, and the guy whipped to the side of the road and stopped for us. Everyone there loved the hikers. They were super nice to us, asking us about our trip. It was the first time I felt like it's been a hiker town. I really felt like that in Chester, California. So shout out to them. You can also go into Chico. I didn't talk to anyone that did that. It's about an hour drive to the west, I believe. Anyway, it's a bigger town. It has more amenities there. That's another option, but Chester was super great. A guy that's done this trail like 7 times has told me that it would change as we got in Northern California, and it absolutely has. I mean, the trail magic's been better. We've had multiple trail magic, multiple water caches in these long stretches where there's not been water. I think the water drains off real quick due to the hard ground from the fires, I guess, around here. Like, it's all lava rock, so it all drains off real quick. There's like lava caves. I saw a geyser. Been some interesting things from like the volcanic activity that's still here. We stopped in Old Station. That's kind of just a stop. I would get a package there. Some people stayed there, but there was nothing wrong with it. The people there were really nice. It's just more like a campground. There's just not much there to do. You get a resupply package there. I got shoes there because I was feeling everything from walking on this hard rock. I mean, absolutely everything. My feet were killing me. This rock will slice your shoes up. My shoes actually blew out leaving the Sierra, so it's been needed, but I got my shoes, thankfully. I replaced my poles from the bull incident and then bent a pole, and then 2 days after I replaced the bent portion of one of my new poles, an animal chewed them up. So they're duct taped now, but an animal chewed them up while I slept, chewed all the cork off, chewed my handles off, the little wraps that go around your wrist, and I'm assuming they're in some marmot's nest or something now. So that was great. As far as wildlife, we saw a bobcat and marten in the Sierra. We saw a deer named Shithead Steve. And yes, I'm serious, he is named Shithead Steve. He takes off with things, but it's been like an ongoing learned behavior with NorCal deer where they try to take your stuff. Some of them are worse than others, but they creep around your tent all night. And it's a little weird at first because didn't know what it was. It was deer just creeping around my tent. I've heard a lot of reports of bear. We've not seen any bear. A few people have, but no real issues with bear apparently. But the deer, you do have to worry about the deer. They will steal your things. They will try to get in your tent at night. They are ballsy. I've never seen anything like it. I'm from East Tennessee and in the Smoky Mountains. The deer don't care. They don't care if you walk around them. In Yosemite, the deer didn't care. These deer will try to steal your shit. And it's like a ongoing problem. I don't know. The only thing I can assume is that people feed them and it's become learned behavior that, you know, the deer pick up from their parents. We actually saw a baby deer. That's probably a future thief now that I think about it. But she had just had her baby next to the lake. That was actually kind of cool. So it's been nice. It's just been absolutely hot. Again, the burned areas, they're doable. I know a lot of people skip up all the way to Old Station. I didn't think it was necessary to skip to Old Station. We kind of got into the burn. Well, there's burns that they're like different levels because they're from different years. It's an ongoing problem. There's burns all the way from the 80s around Mount Lassen. You got Mount Lassen on your left and Mount Shasta on your right. We've just made it around Mount Lassen and the burned areas are gone, but I think we walked through like 5 separate fires. That's spanning back to the 80s, I think. Anyway, we got up to the Dixie Fire and it's very doable to walk through. It's very dirty. It's not pleasant to look at. If you're out here section hiking, then I would kind of understand going around it. But, you know, if you're through hiking, you're kind of pushing through these things. So we looked at it. It wasn't dangerous. It was kind of like the Sierra. A lot of people skipped the Sierra this year. We did not have a high snow year like they did in 2019 or 2017. So at least for me, it didn't seem necessary to skip the Sierra. It never really felt super dangerous. Like, yes, it is dangerous no matter what time you go through there. There's some sketchy parts, especially if you have snow. But if you're through hiking this trail, part of the reason you're out here is to come out here and do hard things and to push yourself. So for me, it seemed counterintuitive to skip it, but I've talked to a lot of people that actually skip the Sierra and say they're going back. You know, I talked to the my buddy that's done the trail a bunch of times, and he hates it. He can't stand it because, you know, he says most years they never go back. They skip hundreds of miles, they don't go back, and then they call themselves through hikers, which for me, I don't really care what you do. If you want to lie to yourself about doing this trail, that's on you. He was very insulted. Some other people had some pretty harsh opinions about that. Anyway, what I'm getting at is that you just need to be very careful if you come out here and skip these portions of trail, because what ends up happening is people skip hundreds of miles, and then they get to like the burn section, and they're like, what's another 50 miles? Another 50 miles. Before you know it, they skipped 10, 20% of the trail, and they say, well, I'm going to go back and do that. They don't go back and do that. The majority of people don't do that. Same thing happened on the AT. So just be careful going down that slippery slope if you're going to come out here and do this. Do what's good for you. I would hike this trail one of two ways. I would pick out what you really want to do, the beautiful sections that don't suck, and go do them. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's a great way to hike this trail. The other way to do this trail is what I'm doing, is through hiking. But don't give in when things get tough. You gotta push through. That's part of through hiking, and they call it embracing the suck. It's like a cliche saying, but it's very true. You gotta embrace the suck. If you give in, like, I don't know what you're really proving to yourself, but for anyone out here, it's your hike. You do it the way you want to. For me, we're in a low snow year. I pushed through the snow. I was just surprised that I've been talking to a lot of people lately. A lot of people skip the Sierra. I was very surprised, but we got a great year for it. So it was like, as far as like, if you're capable of doing it this year, of getting through the snow, like I'm from East Tennessee. I didn't have any idea what I was doing through the snow, and I did fine. I am in pretty good shape, but I saw a lot of people in just frankly not good shape, and they hated the Sierra, but they pushed through it. And that's the whole thing. Like with a guy from Australia, he absolutely hated the Sierra, and he'll flat out tell you, I hated it. Like for me, it was my favorite part, but he hated it. But you know what? He sucked it up and he did it. And that's what this hike's all about. Push through when things get hard. I would say don't go skipping things. If things are on fire out here, that's totally different. If you can't find the trail on the CDT and you go around, that's totally different. But out here on the PCT, there's not been anything dangerous this year. So there's been, in my personal opinion, there's been no reason to skip. So I won't keep harping on that. I will just say, be careful skipping out here, because people get in a bad habit of skipping. So we went through the burn section, very dirty, very nasty. Your socks will stay black. So also don't blame people if they didn't want to go through there. I know some people jumped up to Old Station. The logging companies, they've just cleared out all these areas so well. You can tell they're really efficient. It's a little sad because they're so efficient, because it happens so much. But man, they've really taken care of the trail. Shout out to Northern California. SoCal, you're just not on the same level. The trail magic wasn't up there. There's a lot of people taking advantage of you in SoCal, trying to take way too much money for rides and things. We had a ride in Big Bear. I shouldn't say the name, but anyway, she left us waiting for like 3 hours. It was a big thing. She left us waiting for 3 hours for a paid ride, and then told us basically to go screw ourselves and find someone else. So Northern California has been great. This has just been my experience. Maybe other people had great experiences with people in SoCal. I did not. So yeah, I'll leave it at that. I'll stop there. Northern California has been great. Everything's green where it's not burned. It's just super hot. We're going into Burney. I'm getting my first zero after about 2 weeks. It's been almost 2 weeks since I've had a zero, so I'm looking forward to that. Tahoe, South Lake Tahoe, and Sierra City. Power was out in both cities when we walked into them for different reasons, so I'm looking forward to having power. Still not sure why Sierra City didn't have power, but we walked down there. They said the municipality had them on a diesel generator and didn't get their diesel shipment. It almost sounds like they just let their power go off. It's a town that needs some help. Hopefully their industry will spring back up. It's a beautiful area. I mean, as far as like the fishing and hiking and everything, it's really nice. It's just hard to access, and just not much there. With the economy the way it is, I worry about these little towns. I hope they stay around, because they're part of the, one of the best parts of the trail is going through these little towns like Mammoth, South Lake Tahoe, Bishop. These towns were great, but they're bigger, which means they do provide a lot of things that you want as a hiker. But you kind of get better vibes from these small towns a lot. You get better stories. Since Sierra City, I met a guy that's lived here his whole life. You know, he was telling me about the mining industry, telling me what it used to look like, telling me how the fires have gotten worse. And one of my favorite things to do on these long distance hikes is talk to these people from these little towns. And they're just full of so much history and things you won't find on Wikipedia, and opinions from people that were there when these things happened, instead of someone just regurgitating facts they read in a book that may or may not be true. He told me some things that I don't think anyone else on this trail probably knows about Sierra City, unless they're from that little area. So that was cool. I hope to meet more people like that. We're going into Oregon. I hope the weather cools off a bit. We're trying to get to Washington before mid-September. That's generally when storm season, I guess that's what they consider it, gets really bad up there. It gets really wet and cold. So trying to finish first week of August. May be repeating myself, but it's week 11 or 12, going on 12 out here. It's been great. The train's easy here. Busted out 27 or 28 miles yesterday. You know, you push through these areas like the Sierra, you push through these burned areas, it's almost like you're rewarded with this really nice terrain. Other than the fact that it's just absolutely too hot right now. During the day, it's getting in the 90s, so it's pretty much too hot to be hiking like this. We were doing like 5 to 7 day food carries. We're trying to knock that down to like 4 or 5 days. The towns are not super accessible, so that's the negative aspect of it. But man, it's just too hot to be carrying this stuff. But like I said, there's trail angels that are handing out cold drinks and handing out filling water caches out here, excuse me. So it does compensate a bit. Shout out to Northern California. It very drastically changed. We hit the halfway point, and it's like just kind of the whole vibe changed, because you go into Chester right after the halfway point, and it seemed like the whole vibe changed. It's almost like people wanted us to be here, and it didn't feel that way up to this point. So we'll see. We'll see what you got, Oregon. We'll be there in a few weeks. We passed 1,400 miles yesterday. So I have 1,400 miles on the Pacific Crest Trail. Got about 1,200 to go from here. Gonna go into Burney. The church is open for anyone wondering. I just wanted a hotel room because I haven't gotten to stay anywhere in a couple weeks. Everyone's shooting for the church, so I didn't know how crowded it'd be. It has like a kitchen and stuff. Sounds like a really good deal. But I don't want to be fighting with people over the kitchen and whatever else. Sounds like it might be a little crowded, but also sounds like a good spot. So for anyone wondering, the church is open. It's been the only church open in a few towns. I know that they talk about the churches through this section. It's been the only one that you could access. So maybe think about that if you're hiking next year. Consider going through the burn section and not skipping, because it's not dangerous. They have it well logged. I'm trying to give advice for anyone that might find this video and may be looking for time sensitive information, because I couldn't find anything about like the burn section, the churches, the places to stay. No one really knows these things are open, so I'm trying to include that info if maybe you're hiking the next year or two. Hopefully more and more gets open from COVID, although unfortunately it sounds like a lot of the trail angels are not going to come back to the trail. A lot of the most legendary trail angels just kind of called it quits. Some of them were older after COVID. So that's about all I got. I would appreciate it if you like this video, if you could subscribe to my channel, or not. Maybe you just hated it and you don't want to, but if you feel the urge, like, subscribe, And I'll try to do a video in the next 2 weeks or so. Peace out till next time.